Good evening, folks. Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. Been a little bit, so did a video for you guys and wanted to do an update for you tonight. There's been a lot of questions coming at us about Biden's executive orders. He had another press conference just last week in the Rose Garden talking about another executive order that he has written, or his staff wrote, to attack gun owners. So we're going to talk about that in tonight's video. Guys, get signed in. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. You guys give me a mic check, and we'll begin this broadcast. I know that a lot of people are asking about this because this guy can't pass gun control in the Senate. Biden doesn't hardly have 50 votes, let alone 60 votes. And so the only option he has right now is to try to move gun control through executive orders. Now, look, this is just straight up tyranny. This is straight up crap. This guy, this doddering old fool, just stands up there and says, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this. And we're going to break those down in this video tonight. And if you don't, you're going to be a felon. And I'm going to have my DOJ and my ATF, or AFT for President Biden, come along and come after you. And that's the whole idea here. He can't pass gun control in the Senate, but he has to please his donor base. He has to please the George Soros crowd, the Michael Bloomberg crowd. And so all he has left is executive orders. Now, there's two solutions to this. There's only two ways you can stop this. We can't stop this legislatively in the Congress because these orders are not going through Congress. That's the whole point. He's bypassing the Congress, bypassing the people's representatives, and doing this via executive order. So we have two options. Number one is to sue them, and we're going to be suing them. But the thing is, we cannot sue the federal government until after these executive orders are effective, until after there are victims, until after there are gun owners who have been charged with crimes pursuant to these executive orders. There's no way to short circuit that process. So in the meantime, we have the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and that is the big protection that we can initiate right now before session ends and before any Iowans are in the crosshairs of the Biden DOJ. But first, let's back up and discuss these executive orders. Again, this president cannot pass gun control of any kind right now in the Senate. Does not have the votes. He's frankly not even close. But he has to please the left wing of his party. And he has to please Michael Bloomberg. The guy spent $100+ million installing Biden in the White House and flipping control of Congress in 2020. And they're demanding some ROI on that investment. And so what Biden's trying to do is three executive orders. The first one, and these are all, two of these have already had their final order has been published. And what that means is the final language is done. There is a date for when they become effective, and we know what's going to happen and when. So the first one of these orders makes it a crime for you or I to use an AR-15 pistol brace. Now, if you're not sure these are accessories that make AR-15 pistols more controllable. I got a bunch of them. They're great. And attached to an AR-15 pistol, it makes the firearm easier to control, and we should all want that. Even crazy old Joe Biden should want that. There's 10 to 40 million of them in circulation, according to the DOJ. And Biden's executive order would make it a felony to attach that firearm to that pistol brace. See, they're trying to avoid a real problem. So they're not trying to say you have to turn them in. They're just saying if you ever attach it to a firearm, you're going to be a felon. That's the first order, and that takes effect in August. Now, the second order deals with 80% lower receivers. Biden calls them ghost guns, right? What these are homemade firearms. These are guns that a whole bunch of you watching right now make in your homes. They're homemade firearms. And the reason why we like to do this is not just because we're firearms guys and we like to build firearms as a hobby, but because I don't know about you, but I love the fact that I have guns in my home, guns in my safe that Joe Biden doesn't know a damn thing about because Joe Biden can't track what he doesn't have a serial number for. That's why the DOJ and the White House hate these, because they cannot track firearms that they can't trace with a serial number. And so Biden's second executive order would mandate that any gun dealer, any gunsmith, anybody who has an FFL who encounters an 80% lower receiver through a sale, a trade, working on these firearms on behalf of a customer, they would be required to put a serial number on these firearms and add that information into the NICS system. So your previously homemade firearm that Joe Biden knew nothing about, well, they'd know all about it now. They'd have your name, they'd have your address, they'd have the kind of firearm you have and its new serial number. And if they violate that, if the gunsmith or FFL violates that, that would be a felony. That's number 2, and that takes effect in June. Now, the third one is a new thing, and Biden has talked about this. What was the date on this? I think it was April 4. Let me see here. It was right around the middle of April. The exact date, I don't have it here right now. But the whole idea here is Biden is looking to redefine what a firearm is. If you're a gun guy, you know what I'm talking about. The lower receiver for an AR-15, for example, is the part of the firearm that is actually considered a firearm for ATF purposes. So the lower receiver, most of the time, has a serial number if it's not made at home. And the lower receiver is what is tracked through a form when you sell or buy a firearm from a dealer. But that's it. And what Biden's trying to do now with his third executive order is mandate that you have your upper receivers serialized as well. The upper receiver. And so for all the guys and all the gals, everybody else who has these lowers with multiple different upper receivers, and a lot of us have that, that would be a crime going forward as well, to buy an upper receiver that does not have a serial number. Some people are asking in the comment section, where is that in the executive order? It's on page, I think it's 135 of this crap, and it says, for this reason, the ATF is finalizing this rule to require placement of an individual serial number on a single frame or receiver of every given firearm. The upper receiver then is a part of this process. So they're building the largest database of firearms accessories in the history of the country. None of this is going to be used to stop crime. I don't give a crap what they say. Do some criminals use 80% firearms in criminal actions? Of course they do. Other ones use 80% lower firearms. That's not going to change for a second. We all know that. This entire thing is designed to simply make criminals out of gun owners. That's it. This madman in the White House can't pass his gun control agenda. He's angry. And so he's sitting there screaming in the Rose Garden about how we're going to do this, whether you like it or not. Whether Congress votes on it or not, he's going to mandate these tyrannical orders. So again, these are the 3 orders that we're facing right now. The one deals with 80% lower receivers. One deals with the AR-15 pistol brace, or any pistol brace, just to be clear. The third one deals with a mandated serial number on upper receivers. So again, this has never passed Congress, but by August of this year and June of this year, all 3 of these orders are going to be enforceable. All 3 of these orders are going to be enforceable by the DOJ, by the ATF, the federal agencies, but also by Iowa law enforcement agencies. And that's the whole point behind the Second Amendment Preservation Act. We all know this, that the Biden administration simply does not have the manpower to enforce this stuff using federal authorities. We all know this. They depend on state and local resources to enforce all of their agenda. Sure, they have their own manpower to enforce high-profile things, get some good headlines and stuff, but they always count on Iowa deputies, Iowa troopers, Iowa city cops to enforce their agenda. It's always been that way. And what SAPA does is says that this is a sovereign state, that Iowa has the right to enact its own laws that are in the best interest of our own citizens, and that we've done that. And that Iowa's gun laws are far different than the tyrannical regime that Joe Biden's trying to mandate by executive fiat. And so what SAPA simply says is that Iowa cops because they work for Iowa, after all, not the DOJ, that Iowa cops will be required to enforce Iowa law only when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories. I'm going to say that again. Iowa cops would be required to only enforce Iowa laws when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories. We're not saying that the DOJ, that the White House cannot institute executive orders. We think it's BS. We think it's tyrannical, unconstitutional, and a joke. But we're not saying they don't have the authority to do that. What we're saying is that the DOJ, the White House, does not have the authority to force Iowa's law enforcement community to enforce it. That's all we're saying. This is the same idea of state sovereignty that the left used for all those years when President Trump wanted to have help deporting violent illegal aliens convicted of violent crimes in many cases. Left-leaning cities and states gave them sanctuary, right? We're not going to help the Trump White House deport violent illegal aliens. They did it to President Trump, and it was 100% constitutional back then. We can do the same thing now. Again, we're not challenging the supremacy clause. We're not saying the White House does not have a process to use executive orders. But again, what we're saying is that they damn sure do not have the authority under the Constitution to force Iowa to enforce their agenda. That's what it is. And by doing that, and by denying the White House all the manpower they're counting on here in Iowa, their agenda is going to fall flat in its face. That's just the reality. They do not have the manpower to do it on their own. Now, the question, folks, is, are we going to have this done in time yet this session in Des Moines? We're on borrowed time. We're way past the expiration date, the scheduled end date for this session. Most of the House has not been in Des Moines for the last 10 days. They have negotiations happening behind the scenes right now on some of the education bills, the budget bills, etc. But there are some people who are saying that they're simply not going to reconvene for this session. So we're not 100% clear on when and how session is going to end. But what we do know is that these guys, these Republican supermajorities in Des Moines, have had 5 months, 4 months now to deal with this, and they won't do it. We know that we have executive orders that are going to be finalized, that are going to be enforced long before we come back in a session next January. So we have these pro-gun majorities. The question is, will the Republican leaders, will Matt Winchell, will Jack Whitver do what they have to do to pass SAPA this session or not? Because if it doesn't happen, you're going to have Iowans in the crosshairs, not just of the DOJ, not just of, out-of-state tyrants from 1,000 miles away. You're going to have the Sheldon, Iowa Police Department tasked with enforcing this garbage. You're going to have the Keokuk Police Department enforcing this garbage. You're going to have county sheriffs all across the state under orders to enforce this garbage. And this is ridiculous. These are Iowans, and they're paid for by Iowa tax dollars. They work for the people of Iowa. Their charter is the Iowa Constitution. And we certainly have the right to tell them what laws they're going to enforce. This is not a theory. This is not just some kind of a pipe dream that we dreamed up once Biden was installed in the White House. You probably all know this already, but Missouri enacted SAPA legislation last year. In fact, we helped with that fight with the Missouri Firearms Coalition, our sister organization. And so in Missouri right now, this is the law. This is the law. Missouri cops only enforce Missouri law when it comes to firearms, ammunition, and accessories. That's it. That's it. Crime hasn't spiked out of control in Missouri. Things haven't gone crazy in Missouri because of this. Because, again, state law makes it a crime, to commit murder, just like federal law does. All the same gun crimes in federal law, or most of them anyway, are found in state law in Missouri. So they can enforce the laws and maintain law and order by simply enforcing state law. It's the same thing here in Iowa. Murder is illegal here in Iowa. Armed robbery is illegal here in Iowa. Attempted murder is illegal here in Iowa. All these felony gun crimes are illegal here in Iowa. So Iowa cops could maintain law and order. Iowa cops could do their job, enforce the law. Excuse me. Iowa cops could do the job that we, the people, want them to do to maintain law and order without having to become pawns of the Joe Biden DOJ. That's what SAPA does. The thing is, there's no ambiguity about this in Des Moines. We've had meetings with legislative leaders long before session even began. They all know what SAPA is. They all know what SAPA does. But here's the deal. And again, we've already got SAPA passed subcommittee in the Senate. And we've got, 19 co-sponsors in the House. So there's no question as what SAPA is or what bill we're talking about or where we are in that process. The thing is, many of the Rhino Republicans in Des Moines simply say, you know what? We've done enough for gun owners. We've done enough. We passed constitutional carry. What more do these people want? Well, I don't know about you guys, but sure, that was our signature issue. That's what IGO got founded for. We fought like that, like dogs, for that bill for years, and we're pleased to have that in the rearview mirror, just like stand your ground law and shall issue and everything else. That's great. But they dragged their butt on that for so many years, where we should have been one of the first states in America to enact constitutional carry. We were way in the back of the pack, at least as far as the red states that have already done this. And they drug it out for years. So, yeah, that's great. We got constitutional carry. But that was last year's fight. That was last decade's fight, frankly. Now we have Joe Biden in the White House. Now we have fiat-based gun control coming through executive orders that never passed through Congress that are going to be used against gun owners here in Iowa in a matter of months. And we have a pro-gun majority. We have a pro-gun majority. That's what we're told, right, in Des Moines, that can deal with this right now. The question is, will they? So, guys, take a moment immediately and hit that link. I'm going to post it here in the comment section. Give me just 1 second here. Hit that link and tell your state rep, tell your state senator, get off your butt and pass SAPA legislation before adjournment in Des Moines. I'm reading one of the comments here. Gary says, I thought once you milled an 80% lower, all you could do with it is keep it or destroy it because you cannot give it away or sell it. That's correct, Gary. That's not in dispute. You're correct. We're talking about the fact that Biden wants to mandate upper receivers have serial numbers, and when it comes to lower receivers, 80% firearms, that anytime they go before a dealer to be worked on, a gunsmith to be worked on, they'd be required to put a serial number on that 80% lower at that point as well. If I did say, Gary, sell or transfer, that was a mistake. I might have misspoke on that, but you're correct. You cannot sell or transfer an 8% lower base firearm. But if it goes to a gunsmith for work, the DOJ's latest order would require that person puts a serial number on it and then adds that firearm into the federal NICS system and adds it to that government database. So 3 major executive orders, 3 of them coming at us fast. They're going to be done long before session resumes next January. The question is, what will the Iowa legislature do about this between now and then? Well, again, we cannot sue to block the enforcement of this until after they're effective, until after there are gun owners who are being victimized by the impact of these orders. There's no way to stop it in advance through a lawsuit. We have to deal with this right now legislatively through SAPA. The bill is in the hopper in both chambers, 19 co-sponsors in the House. We've already passed subcommittee in the Senate, but we're way out of time. We're way out of time right now this session. So contact your state reps. You can call them. You can email them. Hit them on Facebook. Hit the petition link we have here right now and tell them, yeah, you know what? Constitutional carry was great. That was way overdue. We want SAPA, and we want it now because without that, we are all of us in the crosshairs of the DOJ and their borrowed manpower, Iowa cops, Iowa troopers, Iowa deputies, Iowa City police officers. Guys, we cannot let this happen. Take action today, guys. Get involved in this fight. Go to joinigo.com and get involved as a member. Joinigo.com. And guys, share our video across your platforms. Help us get the word out. You guys, take care and have a great night.